What's up guys, it's Coaster Werewolf here, and 2022 is coming to an end, so I'm gonna wrap up this year by ranking my top 25 favorite roller coasters. This year has been great for the coasters I've ridden and for my channel. I went to some amazing parks this year for the first time, like Cedar Point and Kings Island, and I got over 30 new coaster credits. And this has also been my best year for my channel, as I hit 100 subscribers and almost tripled my sub count, so thank you to everyone who supported me. Also, as I'm making this video, I've only been on 101 coasters, and there are a lot of parks that I haven't been to yet, so if some of your favorite coasters aren't on here, then that's probably why. So without further ado, let's get into the list. Just barely making my top 25 is Superman Krypton coaster at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas, my favorite B&M floorless coaster. This ride has some great interactions with the quarry wall that surrounds the park, dropping off of it after the lift hill and hopping back onto it for that helix. And the inversions are also really fun, with the huge vertical loop and snappy zero G-roll and corkscrews. At number 24, I have Tatsu at Six Flags Magic Mountain. This B&M flying coaster makes you feel like you're flying, with those graceful high turns and inversions. And that pretzel loop at the end gives some insane positive Gs. And since the ride's built on a hill, you're so high off the ground, which adds even more to that flying sensation. Next up at number 23 is Diamondback at Kings Island. And even though I kind of complained about this coaster a lot in my Kings Island ranking video, I actually do think it's a good ride. The airtime, while not very strong in my opinion, is floaty and sustained, and even though the ride kind of lacks in forces, it's still fun to ride. So no, I don't hate Diamondback. Moving on, at number 22 is Gatekeeper at Cedar Point. This is another ride that I think is really fun, with that awesome wing over drop, some forceful inversions, and lots of near-miss elements. It's also cool to ride alongside the beach and over the entrance of the park, so overall, it's a great coaster. Staying in the same park, at number 21 is Raptor, the B&M invert. This coaster really showcases everything I love about inverts, with intense positive Gs, whippy inversions, and a long ride duration. And while it's not the smoothest ride, it's pretty easy to avoid the head banging by keeping your head forward. At number 20, I have West Coast Racers at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Dueling the other side of the track is always fun, and this ride has some pretty good elements as well. That high five element gives some crazy sideways ejector, and the inversions, twists, and turns are all fun and smooth. And even though the launches aren't very forceful, the layout is fun and pretty well rounded. Next up at number 19 is Xcelerator at Knott's Berry Farm. With this being my home park, I've ridden this coaster many times, and it's always great. First of all, the hydraulic launch out of the station is insanely forceful and is my favorite launch. The top hat after that gives some great airtime when dropping down, and the overbanks are pretty forceful and sometimes make me gray out. Even though this is a very short ride, the speed and intensity bring it up to this spot on the list. At number 18 is the Beast at Kings Island. This is a coaster that people seem to have mixed opinions about, and I thought it was great. The Beast has some of the best laterals on any coaster during those turns, and especially in that giant helix finale, and the forest setting makes it feel like an out-of-control journey through the woods. It was also pretty smooth when I rode it, and unfortunately I wasn't able to get a night ride on it, but if I did, it would probably be even higher on the list. Next at number 17 is another wood coaster, Apocalypse at Six Flags Magic Mountain. And this to me is an underrated and well-rounded woody. It has great laterals, some good puffs of airtime, an out-of-control experience, and the perfect amount of roughness in my opinion. Not too much to cause pain, but enough so it has a bite to it. This coaster also has some great theming, and it hauls through the layout with its low to the ground twists and turns. Moving on to number 16, we're heading back to Kings Island for Banshee, my favorite B&M invert. And while this coaster doesn't have the same whippiness as other inverts like Raptor, it makes up for that with its very intense positive Gs. This ride has some of the best positives on any coaster I've ridden, and it also has some other forces like hang time on the inline twist and a great stomach dropping feeling on the first drop. Also, I found this coaster to be quite smooth, with only a slight rattle that doesn't bring any pain. Next at number 15 is Superman Ride of Steel at Six Flags America. And I know this layout is kind of weird, but I find it to be really fun. The first drop and airtime hill give some good floater airtime, and the hills toward the end give some pretty strong ejector. The huge helixes, while not very forceful, give a great sense of speed, and this is also a pretty long ride. So overall, I think it's a great coaster and definitely the best in the park. At number 14 is Cannibal at Lagoon, and the fact that a park like Lagoon built this massive coaster in-house is just crazy to think about. For starters, that first drop is one of the steepest in the world, and it's insane dropping over 200 feet at such a steep angle. The inversions that follow give some good forces, and the Lagoon roll at the end is one of the best hang time moments on any coaster. This ride is also glossy smooth and only has a lap bar, so it's very comfortable as well. Next at number 13 is one of the most iconic roller coasters, Millennium Force at Cedar Point. And the feeling of speed you get on this ride is amazing, as you fly through those turns and hills without slowing down. And while it's not the most intense coaster, there are still some good forces, like some positives on the overbanks and airtime on the hills. Also, the first drop is one of the best, as it gives great ejector airtime and an amazing view of Lake Erie. Not to mention the Intamin T-bar restraints that are very open, so you can feel all that speed even better. Moving on, at number 12 is the newest coaster on my list, Wonder Woman Flight of Courage at Six Flags Magic Mountain. And this coaster is one that definitely exceeded my expectations. Being a brand new coaster, there weren't many public opinions on it, so I didn't know what to expect, but I was still surprised by how much I liked it. For starters, the first drop is one of the best, with strong and sustained ejector airtime the whole way down, and the rest of the ride is filled with snappy turns, inversions, and more ejector. So overall, a great ride and definitely a good fit for the park. Next at number 11 is Orion at Kings Island. A lot of people seem to complain about this ride, but I thought it was great and underrated. First of all, I was surprised by how strong the airtime is, with strong sustained floater on the drop and legit ejector on the speed hill, off-axis hill, and pop into the brakes. This coaster also has a great sense of speed, and the helix gives good positives. A lot of people say Orion is a short ride, and even though it could have had a few more elements, I thought it was a decent length. So overall, a great and really fun coaster. So now, we have made it to my top 10, and these are truly some amazing coasters. Starting off my top 10 is Gold Striker at California's Great America. This GCI Woody has an amazing twister layout, with quick turns, pops of airtime, laterals, and really good pacing. I've heard people say that this ride is rough, and while that's probably an issue now, it wasn't too bad when I rode it back in 2018. So overall, a great wooden coaster, and it's sad that this and the rest of the park will probably be closing within the next 11 years. Coming back to my home park, at number 9 is GhostRider, which is probably my most ridden coaster. This ride used to be very rough, but ever since the GCI retracking in 2016, it's been as smooth as ever. GhostRider is a really long ride, and that combined with the great forces and pacing makes this my favorite in the park. The drop off the mid-course gives great sustained ejector in the back row, and the unbanked helix at the end gives some insane sustained laterals that make you feel like the train is gonna tip over. So overall, a great wooden coaster. But moving on to another wooden coaster, at number 8 is Mystic Timbers at Kings Island. This is my favorite ride in the park, and my favorite GCI, mainly because of its great out-of-control experience. Mystic Timbers has an out-and-back layout that goes back into the woods of Kings Island, and most of the ride consists of many spawn pops of ejector, but also some snappy twists and turns, and of course, the shed. This coaster has great pacing, as it hauls through the whole layout, and the rapid-fire elements make it feel even faster. Also, night rides on Mystic Timbers are amazing, as you can barely see where you're going. Next at number 7 is Wonder Woman Golden Lasso Coaster at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. And even though this ride is really short, it packs in a huge punch. Almost all of the elements stand out, and it feels like it's going way too fast through all of them. Like, just look how fast you go through this turn. The drops give strong sustained ejector, the dive loop gives great ejector and then snaps you upside down, and the twisted airtime hill is honestly just amazing. Also, the restraints are pretty uncomfortable and kind of dig into your shoulders, but they're not the worst. So overall, this ride has great pacing, airtime, intensity, and whip, and if it was a longer ride, it would probably rank even higher. This next coaster might come as a surprise to some of you, but at number 6 is Boardwalk Bullet at Kemah Boardwalk, which is my favorite wooden coaster. And I feel like this coaster is not talked about as much as it should be, because this is an incredible ride. First of all, this is probably one of, if not the most compact coaster ever, with over 3,000 feet of track crammed into only 1 acre of land. That is insane, and so is the actual ride experience. Boardwalk Bullet is very intense for Woody, with strong pops of ejector, good laterals, and even some good positives. It's also a long ride, which is really impressive considering the tiny plot of land it sits on. And the pacing is also great, as it seems to fly through the whole layout without slowing down. And I also found it perfectly smooth, which is not always the case for Woodies, so that made it even more enjoyable. Overall, Boardwalk Bullet is an amazing wooden coaster with great airtime, pacing, and an out-of-control feeling. So now, we have made it to my top 5, and these 5 coasters are truly some of the best in the country, if not the world. So, starting off my top 5, we're heading back to Fiesta, Texas for Iron Rattler, the RMC hybrid conversion of the original Rattler. This was my number 1 coaster until the start of this year, and although it has been dethroned, it's still an amazing ride. Starting off, the first drop is one of the best, with its sustained ejector airtime and laterals, as a twist to the left and to the right while you go down. And even though it does slow down quite a bit when it's on the top of the quarry wall, I still think those hills on it give good airtime, and the drop off the quarry wall gives some very strong and sustained ejector. While I do think Iron Rattler is a pretty short ride, the elements it does have are amazing. Moving on, at number 4 is X2 at Six Flags Magic Mountain, the Aerodynamics 4D coaster that caused the company to go bankrupt, but they went out with a bang because this is one of the most insane and out of control rides. The first drop alone is already crazy, as it faces you straight down while you drop over 200 feet before flipping on your back at the bottom. The following Raven Turn, Backflip Hill, and Fly to Lie are great, and the final Raven Turn, while sort of painful, is very aggressive and one of my favorite elements on the ride. Also, there is onboard audio and a flamethrower effect during the ride, and while they usually don't work, it makes the experience even more chaotic when they do. So overall, X2 is one of the most intense, out of control, and unique coasters, but it's not my favorite at Magic Mountain, because one spot ahead of it at number 3 is Twisted Colossus, the RMC hybrid conversion of the original Colossus. The great airtime, unique elements, and long ride time make this one of my favorite RMCs, and even though I've never gotten a dual, I can imagine how great that would be. Since it's a Mobius loop, you ride both sides in one ride, so it feels like 2 rides in one, which is awesome, and the elements are great too. The drops, camelback, double ups, and many other hills all give great ejector, the 0G roll and Top Gun stall are great inversions, and the high fives, although not as good as the ones on West Coast Racers, are fun and unique. Next up at number 2 is Maverick at Cedar Point. To me, this is a very well-rounded coaster, because there are a lot of different forces throughout the layout, and all of them are strong and intense. You have great ejector airtime on the drops and hills, very snappy transitions, insane whip on the stangle dives, good positive Gs, some inversions, a great launch, and it's a long ride. A lot of people seem to dislike the restraints on Maverick, and although they're not great, I didn't find them painful or bulky, and they didn't staple me on any of my rides. So overall, a very intense and out-of-control ride with some of my favorite forces. And now, we are at my favorite roller coaster. And staying in the same park, right next to Maverick, is my number 1 roller coaster, Steel Vengeance. This RMC hybrid claims to have the most airtime on any coaster, and I 100% believe that, because the amount of airtime on this ride is actually insane, and it's all strong ejector. But that's not all this ride has to offer. There's also some amazing inversions, a lot of whip, some snappy elements, and it's overall a crazy, out-of-control layout. Not to mention that it's also a really long ride with great pacing. And all of these great things bring it to my number 1 spot on my list. So that is my top 25 roller coasters as of the end of 2022. If you agree or disagree with my list, feel free to say so in the comments below. And if you liked this video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe to my channel so you won't miss any new content. I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.